Welcome everyone to Deprogrammed on Unsafe Space. I am your host, Carter Laren, and I'm joined, albeit delayed, as always, by Keri Smith. Hey Keri, how you doing?
Hi Carter, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I shouldn't really mock you because after all the mocking that I gave you, I didn't press record yesterday, and I'm taking flack for it as I should. So go ahead, bring it on, chatters.
By the way, I'm
I
not
get it.
really delayed because most of the podcasts that I watch live, they put up hold music and some kind of interstitial for 30 minutes before they start.
I know. We actually can't do that because we're using Zoom. Zoom has a whole bunch of codec problems. We are going to switch away from Zoom. Part of switching away from Zoom was me reconfiguring some stuff I've got here on my desk first to make things more accessible to what we're going to switch to, I think. And that got me discombobulated. And but look here, I got my post-it notes right here. It says there's a 4 things: outline, videos, cube, blah, 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 levels. Number 4 is record. So
record.
It's here now. It's the same post-it that's always been there. I think the answer code, Lori, is, if that's how you say your name. If it's not, sorry, give me some phonetics. The answer is, I think we're going to try switching to Ecamm. It just requires, and Skype, because the quality is better. Keri doesn't even know this yet, but it requires me doing manual camera flipping, which isn't a problem if I have the setup in an easy way to do. So I'm not reaching over far away to flip the camera, which I can do. Anyway, we'll probably give it a shot. Zoom's expensive and not as good quality. So too much making the sausage talk. We did have a conversation on drugs. If you guys, if you want to have, it seems like only Keith the Hat Guy wants to have a show about drugs, but I'll have a show about drugs.
Yeah, that's not for today. Today's deprogrammed, not Kafefi. So
I know they're asking for shows about drugs, though.
Okay.
Although, I guess drugs could be involved in intersectionality. It seems like they are, but you know, who am I? I don't know. Maybe drugs have nothing to do with postmodernism, and it's just a coincidence that the scribbles of postmodernists sound an awful lot like drug-induced craziness.
So somebody, I think, I can't remember who it is. It might actually be Catherine Jepson Moore. Somebody in one of the groups I'm online on Facebook posted this piece that we're going to talk about today, which is just, as Carter said in the artwork, this is your brain on critical theory or postmodernism or SJWs, whatever you want to call it. This is what it does to your brain. And thank you for whoever posted this piece. Thank you for, I think it was Catherine, maybe. But we're going to pull it up. Do you have it there? Do you want me to pull it?
I have it right here. And actually, yeah, so here, I'll pull it. I'll put it up on the screen here for everyone. This is a piece from Medium. This person that wrote this is called, can you see that? Yeah. The person that wrote this is called Harry Josephine Giles. So if you'll notice, Harry and Josephine might be confusing to some people unless you're familiar with transgenderism generally. One thing that I found to be really helpful in going through this piece, Keri, I don't know if I had trouble reading it, but one thing that helped me was understanding. I went to Harry's, I'm going to call Harry him, but I went to Harry's Twitter, and Harry is they, them. Harry uses they, them pronouns. So all this we stuff, it's actually Harry saying, I do this. I think sometimes he means we generally as transgender people, but sometimes I think he means I.
Well, and hence the reason why using we and they is stupid, because
one of the reasons.
It's one of the many reasons is because when you could easily differentiate between the singular and the plural, and you choose not to because you'd rather be an obstinate narcissist, special snowflake. Like, come on, be more clear, not less clear. It's like they prefer to be less clear.
They do.
And when I say they, I mean the plural.
I'm totally confused then.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I found was, or just maybe useful, is to understand that as we go through this, because we'll go through this article. Yes, Harry rails against white people. Understand Harry is white, so it's the standard social justice thing. And I actually, Keri, I don't know if you feel this way, but I after reading the article, I'm actually really glad that Harry wrote this article. I'm really glad that he wrote this article because we get people asking a lot about, like, not a lot, but sometimes, what does radical trans ideology have to do with Marxism? That's a separate thing. It's not Marxism. Stop calling it cultural Marxism. Marxism is distinctly different. What does it have to do with, you're being hyperbolic that they want to tear down the institutions of the West. This isn't feminism. It doesn't have anything to do with feminism, blah, blah, blah. All of that is explained very well in here.
I agree. This is your brain on Marxism too.
Yeah, it's very good window into how those things relate to each other. So on the one hand, that's how I feel about the article. On the other hand, this article is basically just a temper tantrum from a spoiled child who's demanding that every desire he has must be catered to by the rest of us. So
I don't know how you
those.
want to do this, but I would like to start reading some of it out loud in a dramatically. Is that cool?
That was not my plan, Keri, but I think that's an awesome idea. I will. How about this? I'll try and follow along, maybe, so people can see. I think you should just start right from the top with the beautiful little poetry we have going on.
Do we need to do the poem? Because he kind of repeats himself later.
I don't know. The poem is pretty bad, but you do it however you want. You're in charge.
Down. There's a stupid poem at the top. Okay, now scoot on down. Okay.
All right.
This is remember the basic premise here is that transgender people should be paid by the government, which means paid by you, the taxpayer, to undergo transition to the other gender. Okay.
Which just for existing, but yes.
Just for existing, they should be paid by you. Okay. Transition is work. Transition is the labor that continually gives birth to gender, that produces livably gendered lives under intolerable conditions. And the workplace of gender, like any workplace, cannot be born except through self-abnegation, exhaustion, lies, glimpses of satisfaction strung out along the working week, alienation, and endless work. Now, again, this person is not talking about a job.
Wait, shouldn't we should pause once in a while, because this is
of course.
This is Keri, this is very dense word salad.
Yeah,
this entire thing.
It gets better.
I know. I did read the entire article. Yes, it does get better. But a quick comment I want to make is one of the errors that you see quite a lot, and this is being propagated at universities by professors who either are doing this intentionally or just they learned it wrong. A lot of times they don't bother understanding what words actually mean. And they conflate terms, or they just use a word in some way that kind of fits their emotions but doesn't actually mean what they think it means. So the word work is an interesting word because it's the word work is an overloaded, this is maybe a programmer's way to describe it, so sorry if this is nerdy, but the word work is an overloaded term. It has more than one meaning. There's the concept of work that you get paid for, and that concept is you're doing someone that someone else values enough to voluntarily give you some money for. Like, it's something they want you to do. So if I hire you to rake my front lawn, that's work in the sense that I'm paying you to do it, even if you love raking the front lawn. So even if, let's say, you love playing video games and I pay you to play video games, which isn't a real job, that's still work, even though it's just leisure activity for you and you enjoy it because you're getting paid. It's work in that sense. Then there's the other sense of the word work, which is like you having to do things because reality doesn't hand you a long, happy life with amenities and first world living. You actually have to, get up, brush your teeth, make your bed, get dressed, find food, like you have to have conversations with people. All those things that you do, you could count as like work during the day, but that's not the same work as work that gets paid for. So one of the things that they're doing is conflating those two concepts of work. They package them up in one thing and they say, well, it's work, right? It's quote emotional labor for me to have to do, explain to Keri that I'm they, them. That's work. So therefore I should get paid, which is a different that's a different version of the word work. It's a different definition. That's all I wanted to point out, because that's kind of that happens throughout this entire thing. That conflation is part of this entire argument.
Okay.
Keri doesn't care.
We teach.
Just shut up, Carter. I'm going to keep reading. Okay, here we go. I'll put it back up. You know what? She's been so patient with me this week. I should just get whatever you want, Keri. Here you go.
We teach ourselves techniques of dress from online tutorials and whispered conversations. We write dissertation-length posts on support forums detailing self-medication hormone regimes. We order multiple binders and gaffs from exploitative internet retailers and submit the return labels before anyone notices. We labor for hours before the mirror to bring to the inclusive workplace a gender which can be named, respected, spoken with pronouns, paraded in front of diversity working groups. We picket funerals.
Wait, can we pause on that? Because I don't understand that one. I was hoping you could explain this. What?
I think this has to do with their picketing funerals where a trans person has, I'm just guessing, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but where a trans person has killed themselves and the family, or has died, and the family doesn't respect their gender identity and calls them by their old name or whatever. I think they're picketing. They're picketing the families, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's funny. We picket funerals.
It's work, Keri.
It's work. We hold our lovers in the night when they cannot sleep. Now, okay, here's the other thing.
Hey, I do that. Can I get paid?
I know. Well, that's what I'm going to say is everything they're saying in here is stuff that everyone does. Who cares? I mean, not all of it. We don't all picket funerals, but this is all, anyway, we hold our lovers in the night when they cannot sleep. We teach doctors our medical pathways and pretend to be attentive when they repeat our knowledge back to us. We tweet messages in support of the liberal recognition schemes cooked up by our middle managers to ensure our compliant participation in the workplace, the household, the nuclear family. We perform reason. We perform reason and tolerance.
Well, at least there's some honesty there, Keri.
Yeah.
They do perform it.
Reason and tolerance. We absorb the hate and shame of our antagonists. We are the dump for all the sexual anxiety and gender horror of a society sickened by its own creations. We are sex workers. I don't know what decrim now means. We make your entertainment.
Decrim. They mean decriminalize sex work now.
Oh, decriminalize it now. Okay, got it. We make your entertainment, your food, your computers, your care packages, your websites, your education system, your knowledge, your play, your city. Again, everybody does those things. Everybody.
Yeah, also, I just want to point out, since most tech is made in China and there are like 0 trans people in China, they don't actually make our computers. That's not true. Some of them. There's 5 maybe. Right. Are you going to keep, because this is a long thing. Do you think you can dramatic read 12 pages worth of article here? What's your plan?
Well, I was hoping to actually read some of the piece we're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, you want to read the whole thing?
No,
we should.
Go ahead.
We should. No, keep going. I'm down.
No, I don't have anything else. You go ahead.
Well, I want to pick out some. I just want to pause on some of this stuff, right? In fact, the next paragraph, which here I'll put up the next paragraph for you, because you got down to here, which was we are sex workers, decrim now, blah blah blah. Your city, right? Marked by capitalism is this next sentence here, and they're basically saying you live our work, right? This is their argument. I want to pause on the capitalism thing. You know me, of course I want to pause on the capitalism thing. This is another word that they don't understand what it means. And I think it's important to pause on it for just a second, because this person uses capitalism all over the place. This article is very clearly all about destroying capitalism, which I guess we'll get to here. Capitalism is just private property. That's all that capitalism is. It's private property. It's private ownership of property. If you have a system based on private ownership and voluntary exchange, that's capitalism. These people use the word capitalism to mean anything involving currency. So they see the exchange of money in some way and it's automatically capitalism. So to them, taxes are capitalism, the mob is capitalism, stealing from a bank is probably capitalism, I don't know. But anything involving money is capitalism. And capitalism also is it's conflated with all these other things. So capitalism is anything that they don't like colonialism was capitalism to them. Like everything is capital, everything bad is capitalism. And one of the reasons I want to pause here is you'll see in this piece something that is fundamentally Marxist. One of the things I think is a fundamental philosophical flaw of Marxism, and you see it repeated here. And this is why I want to draw a parallel between radical trans ideology and Marxism. A rational person looks out at the world and they see reality first, and then they ask the question, how do we organize given reality? A Marxist looks at the world and says, how are we organized? That must be what's causing reality. So when a Marxist looks at the world, they say, oh, how are we organized right now? Well, some people own factories and some people work in the factories and blah, blah, blah. It must be our organization system, i.e. capitalism or whatever, that's causing the poverty or this or that. It must be causing all this, everything that exists now is caused by the system that is in place. And it's the identical mindset in the woke and the radical trans. If you know, we haven't gotten into this, but they go into, this guy goes into very deeply, and not deeply, but goes into gender as a social construct. And the argument is that gender, he looks out at the world, he sees that there is gender and that we're in some system that he calls capitalism, which is not capitalism, but it has capitalist elements, of course. And he says, oh, gender must be a result of how we've organized society, right? Not gender exists and then we organize society, but we organize society that caused gender to exist. And the justification for getting paid for being transgender is that trans people, according to this article, need to fit into this arbitrary gender construct that, quote, capitalism has created, which would not exist otherwise, apart from capitalism, apart from society. And they're forced to perform as if they have a gender and go through this transition because it's the capitalism has created this social construct of gender. But it's the same, if you can see the same, philosophically, the same mistake that the Marxists made, which is this lack of understanding of the difference between what's existential and what's man-made, what actually exists and what's man-made, right? Biology exists, it's not man-made. Social constructs are man-made. Society is like how we organize it, that's all man-made. Biology is a fundamental thing. It's not made. And Marxists make the same mistake. They look out at the world and they see all the ills of the world and they attribute them automatically to how society happens to be organized. And in some cases that may be a cause, but not in all cases. That's all. I know that was a rant, but it was important to me, Keri.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to keep going? Do you want to find some other spots in this article that you want? I don't know if you want to keep reading it or how you want to do this.
Sure.
All right, so this is the paragraph I just talked about. Do you want to read this one or do you want to switch to? I mean, this whole thing is our care work is unpaid. Our medical expertise
I'd like
is unpaid.
keep reading. Let's see. Marked by capitalism as those with too much gender and too little. We work a second shift, a third shift, a fourth to acquire the resources necessary to produce our genders. To produce genders survivable under capitalism, at least for another year. And further, as those whom capitalism has produced through its cis-heteropatriarchal division of sex classes and gendered labor, whom capitalism has spat out as the uncosted externality of gender, we labor to produce the very gender on which capitalism depends. You live in our work. Our care work is unpaid. Our medical expertise is unpaid. Our gender production is unpaid. Our advocacy is unpaid. See, the thing about this is like, well, then go get a job using these things. By the way, like everybody's care work most people's care work is unpaid unless they have a job in in an industry in which they're being paid to provide care. Like the care work, if you want to call it work, that I do with my loved ones is unpaid. It's necessarily it's stupid. Go get a job. If you have medical expertise and you want to get paid for it, then go get a job in the medical field. Gender production, I don't even know what the F that means. Your advocacy is unpaid. Well, then if you want to be a paid advocate, go get a job at a nonprofit.
Right.
Like
well, so gender production is their concept of like gender is not, so they really believe that gender is not a thing and that they need to fit into the gender roles that capitalist society has created in order to be accepted into society. And that they're calling is gender production. Like,
well,
we have to.
Well, then everybody has to do that. That's stupid.
Of course. And also, it's always important. We brought this up before. Ask unpaid by whom? Who should pay? Right? Who pays? Who are you caring for? They should pay you if you're caring for someone, if that's what you want. Like, who are you giving medical expertise to? Well, ask them to pay you. I'm not getting medical expertise from you, right? So they divorce. This is just like we talked about with adjectives the other day, but like they divorce words from like subjects from objects. So like this is unpaid. By whom? By whom? Right? Who's supposed to be paying it? They don't like to answer that question because the answer is all of us. All right. Keri's going to keep reading though. Okay.
Our writing is unpaid. Wait, our teaching is unpaid. Our writing is unpaid. Yeah. Hello. So's mine. We are in poverty.
Actually, this was paid at the bottom. This person said that they got paid for it, but that's
really funny. And so now at the very point at which our genders are beginning to be renaturalized by liberal capitalism, as the state offers a pittance of funding to our healthcare needs, we demand not merely free healthcare, not merely a place to work, not merely a reparation settlement. We demand wages for transition.
Yep. By the way, Keri, this person, I think you know this, but this person is writing from the UK, and they are, which I guess you can see right in the next sentence here, but they their healthcare is paid for, so they're not even, this isn't even in the US. This isn't a country where there is a national health service that pays for their stuff. So yeah. I don't know. Keri, you want to keep reading?
Nah, I'm done.
Okay. Whew, I'm glad you're done. That was a tough one. So this person goes on. I've just got some highlights. I'm just going to go through some highlights and talk about them because I highlighted some areas that I think are. So first of all, these are demanding. They're demanding wages for their transition. He whatever goes into this transition is work. Makes his argument that it's work to transition, but they argue that gender communism is coming. So I'm not even sure totally what gender communism means, but again, this is this idea that capitalism has produced these genders that they need to conform to. So they go on to demanding wages. And of course, they use the whole word salad of labels to describe things, right? That it's not just a capitalist system, it's a white supremacist, ableist capitalist system. So things get a little bit worse though. So this is where they talk about basically like they have friends, we zap each other's hair, we share resources necessary to support our co-learning. Okay, so you exchange things with your friends, like that's good. We grow chosen families in which trans life can be reproduced, in which the pooled resources of hustle, theft, sex work, and wage labor sustain trans being. So this you'll see later in this article, theft, actual crime, theft is thrown in here as a completely legitimate, quote, resource. So if someone else, works at McDonald's for waged labor and brings home money and someone else steals the money, that's totally fine. This is one of their resources that they're sharing in their little trans communes. We foster anti-capitalist, anti-supremacist, and abolitionist revolutionary practices as part of the communal resistance to racial, sexist, ableist, capitalist gender. Again, gender isn't, to them, gender is a result of racist, sexist, ableist capitalism. That's where gender comes from. That's where gender comes from. Then they attack, Keri, you know how we sometimes talk about, again, I feel like sometimes we'll say things about the radical trans community and it sounds hyperbolic. And I feel like I'm one of those weird religious right people when I start talking about family values. Like, I hate to say family values. They're like, it's an attack on the family, because I sound crazy. I feel like I sound crazy because I grew up in the 80s. But here we are. Here's this radical trans person. Here, let me read the sentence. The gendered family, the gendered family is the system of divided and exploited labor that reproduces individualized bodies for maximally exploitable waged labor. A necessary mechanism of capitalism that suppresses workers' collective reproduction. Collective reproduction. Is that an orgy? I'm not sure what that is. Organization and dissent through atomized subjectivity and coercive border control at the door of the family house. So this is the kind of Marxist communist ideal of destroying families per se and having everything be communal. Children are raised communally. Everything is communal. It is literally an attack on the family because they view the family as this mechanism of control invented by capitalism, not something that, may or may have arisen evolutionarily as the survival strategy.
Yeah, what occurs to me with all this is that this person may not be paid, as they put it, for all this labor, gender labor, but their parents probably paid a very hefty fee for them to go to college and learn all of this word salad.
This person has 2 degrees, actually, yes.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of nonsense. I mean, this reads to me like someone who's never worked a real job in their life. So
well, so this person is an artist, so you're kind of right. This is the other thing. This is where, I'm against endowments for the arts. I hate government grants. I hate all that crap. And sometimes people will say like, well, how are artists, how are we going to have good art if we don't support it? You need to have the public needs to support art. This is where that money goes from. Yeah, they are 2 art degrees. Herman points out. It's like directing and whatever. But this is where that money goes. That money goes to support craziness like this. This is where most of those art grants go. This person would have to actually get a job if it weren't for grants, I guarantee you. The other thing that, Keri, maybe you can unravel this for me as a former social justice warrior. If gender is a construct of this system and doesn't exist naturally, then what are they transitioning to, and why should they get paid?
it's a good question.
Just a question I had. All right. There's more fun. I'm sure you've got parts of this that you want to pick apart, Keri, but in the absence of that, I'll just keep going. Here's another area that I highlighted in this article. Healthy gender is a biological fascist fantasy. Let me read that again. Healthy gender is a biological fascist fantasy whose function in the heads of the exploiters and the misguided is the concealment of the social conditions and social functions of transition. From what to what? Can't answer that if gender is a fantasy, but just let that self-imploding sentence stand. We embrace transness as sickening gender. Transition in this developed form is the protest of life against capital, the revolutionary productive force for humans. this is all about revolution. This is all about Marxist revolution, which becomes more and more clear the deeper you get into this pile of crap. I think Elizabeth is correct in chat. The next banned word will be healthy. Healthy is a bad word. It shames the unhealthy. Let's see. They talk about work being grueling, boring. All work is boring, grueling, and expensive. But where the work of transition is communized, it begins to fulfill its necessary revolutionary social role as the presupposition, product, and negation of capitalism. So again, so now we've gone from, a lot of people view the trans issues as like, just call someone, hey, this person just feels a certain way, call them this. You're not being compassionate. The ideology behind this is the destruction of Western civilization. And when I said that previously, people have said I was crazy and being hyperbolic. I'm not crazy. You just haven't read enough of what they're saying. This is from the horse's mouth. All right. So they argue that, we argue that the perspective of transition as work, of transition as the presupposition, product, and negation of capitalist gender, is an analysis of transition as it appears under the rule of the imperial capitalism originating in European settler states. So they start to make this all about colonialism as well. But we do assert the prospective wages for transition. Okay, that's good. They still want their wages. But listen to how they describe Uber and Lyft drivers here. The digital platform capitalist, i.e. founder of Lyft, the digital platform capitalist insists that his driver is an entrepreneurial partner in order to obscure the driver's true role as a neo-feudal worker who rents the means of production from the boss. So you got a car, you want to make some extra money, some guy has an app where people can go get rides from you, and the analogy here is that you are a neo-feudal worker who rents the means of production from the boss. Then they rail against actually acceptance of trans people, which is funny. They say some trans people are granted elite surgeries, glossy magazine covers, columns in trans misogynist newspapers, wages as cops and managers of transition in order precisely to deny other people their transitions and all trans people their revolutionary subjectivity. So the way I read that is Caitlyn Jenner is the problem. I don't know. Keri.
Yeah, they have a real resentment against people who become, famous, trans people who are making it. I just wonder about Harry's grandfather and like great grandfather, like what they did for a living. And that's just where my brain goes. Because
this is a first world problem, right?
This is beyond, like, this is just nonsense. I am so privileged that I have nothing to fight for or against, and so I'm gonna make my purpose in life staring at my own navel, and
or nasal, whatever,
forcing you to call me they, and then calling myself an artist. Look at this, Harry.
Yeah, you have the bio here.
Yeah. And it's just about what he's done, which is making art about protest and protest about art. And again, probably funded by the government, by, taxpayers' dollars, to do this kind of crap. And my work is about what it feels like to live under capitalism and how to survive and resist in a violent world. I make participant. I don't think this person knows anything about living in a violent world. That's why you have all the time in the world to do this nonsense and call it work. Like,
go live in a violent country.
Go live in a violent world and learn and do real work. Like, it's an insult to your ancestors. It's an insult to your ancestors.
No, you're right. And I'm gonna butcher this phrase, but there's the like strong men create I don't know. What is it? Yeah, like strong men create, I don't know, comfortable or successful, prosperous societies. Prosperous societies create weak men. Weak men create that I don't know, not prosperous or decaying or whatever it is, horrible societies.
Which creates strong men.
Men, right? Strong men. Yeah, that's the cycle. But yeah, you have to imagine.
This is a weak man.
Yeah, what did this guy's ancestors do in order to give him this life? This is
Yeah.
I don't know. Daniel in chat says, Daniel Keene says, this isn't a cultural problem. This is a personal perspective problem. I disagree because this personal perspective is rampant in culture. That's why it's a cultural problem. It is a personal perspective problem, but it's everywhere. This guy is not unique. Right? This is normal, and this is what he learned in school. And this is what the woke, this is what the cathedral is going to be pushing down our throats and has started to already. Right? This is what cancel culture is about. These are the people behind. This is the ideology behind most of what we talk about here.
This person is considered, I'm sure, an academic and an intellectual.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're an artsy person, but yeah.
And an artist, which is, come on.
Well, I mean, look at it is actually a Jackson Pollock painting, but with words.
Yes.
So
it's funny. It's a lot of words thrown at the wall.
It is.
I love that.
It is art, I guess, in that sense.
That's a great quote. Yeah, that's funny.
Well, let's get into their demands, Keri, because I'm sure you want to know his demands. I know you've read them, but other people want to know. We demand the immediate end to the occupation of indigenous land and the theft of resources. This old trope. And we demand reparations to nourish the survivance of all whose genders and transitions are resurging against settler colonization. Again, this language implies that gender didn't exist somehow in nature, and there was some sort of colonization, and now like their inner genders are coming out against this capitalist colonization. Gender didn't pre-exist in any way. We demand ongoing payment. Of course you do. We demand ongoing payment from imperial states, i.e. all of you taxpayers, for the labor of activists undoing the extractive colonial laws that regulate gender and sexuality as part of the globalization of imperial capitalism. Wow. A mouthful. I would love for capitalism to become a global phenomenon, but we don't even have it in the US anymore. All right. And wages for transition is okay, blah, blah, blah. For the labor of becoming bodies and minds amenable to the strictures of cis-hetero patriarchal capitalism, we demand payment. So this is what I'm talking about. They're saying that cis-hetero patriarchal capitalism, i.e. all of you, society, we are having these strictures that require them to fit into their norms, and they have to labor to become bodies that we will find acceptable. They also want money for their time laboring in the womb. Now, that's a new one I have not seen before, Keri. Did you get paid for your 9 months of labor in the womb? Assuming that you labored. So anyway, yeah, to do that, we want labor for time in the womb. Pay us. I love when they're, like I said, sometimes they just tell you exactly what they mean. Pay us. Then they get into, here's the relation. We're going to start references now to Simone de Beauvoir and feminism. Actually, it turns out that all women labor to be women. So it's not just trans people. All women labor to be women. That work is also the work of transition. I guess being a woman is somehow transition. So not to say that there's a natural pre-gendered state. We wouldn't want to say that. So don't worry. We're not saying that there's a natural pre-gendered state. But women are alienated for their own reasons, so they should get paid also. Again, you can just see where this is going. It's basically white men have to pay everyone. And actually any man, I guess. So that's more of this. Then they're going to get into why they want to do this. Again, this is part of tearing down society. It attacks capital and forces it to restructure social relations in terms more favorable to us. That's what they want. They're claiming that their minds, bodies, and emotions have all been distorted to form a specific function, i.e. exist in society with us. From now on, they have to pay us because as trans people, we do not guarantee anything any longer. Now, when I first read that, I thought, this is an empty threat. What can they do? There's not a lot of trans people, but they're going to get into what they're going to do. And some of it is a little bit scary. So we want to call work what is work. Again, that is the conflation of the two different definitions of work that I mentioned earlier. All right. So we demand not merely a basic trans income, of course not, but the full communization of trans labor. The work. So okay, now we're going to get into Marxist terminology. You can see the Marxism in this very clearly. The work of transition is the work of class struggle. This is what Keri's talked about before. This is the classism of Marxism applied to intersectionality and intersectional groups. So they're saying the work of transition is class struggle. They're using the word class now to mean the class of transgendered people, and they want to bring about the abolition of that class. They want to destroy gender. This is not about calling Blair White she. This is about bringing about the abolition of gender. In fact, they say it right here. It's a call for the abolition of gender. I thought I was summarizing when I was reading it. It said the abolition of that class, and I was saying the abolition of gender, but there they are in the next sentence. Abolition of gender. We're struggling to abolish capitalism. We commonize transition until it is unrecognizable. Yes, as trans-identified trans, this is my favorite terminology. As trans-identified trans, it should be first understood that transition, like lesbianism, is a category of behavior possible only in a sexist society. So it's because we're sexist that they need to call themselves trans. Transition is no longer a property of only, they want a world where transition is no longer a property of only trans people and gender is no longer a property of only women. Over such a horizon, both womanhood and transition disappear. More greatness. Here, if you want to, sometimes people ask what their end goals are. Here's a great portrayal. This is what they want in the end of society. This is their ends. These are their goals. A world in which many and dissident genders are made possible by the twin values of communality and autonomy in a liberated society, where there are no police and no prisons, when there are no psychiatrists and no borders, when there is no capital accumulation, i.e. we're all destitute, when the responsibility for nurturing the young and the old and everyone in between is collective, i.e. there are no families. This is a Soviet family, Soviet collective raising of children. When education is deinstitutionalized and lifelong, when everyone is a scientist and a carer and a doctor, i.e. no one is a good scientist or a good carer or a good doctor, because you can't do more than one thing well. When we take full responsibility for the ongoing making of each other's being, i.e. complete and utter anti-individualism. Under such conditions, what we know as transition is utterly transformed. So that's their goal. Before we get to the trans strike, which is what the scary part is, maybe we should pause because I've been talking a lot, Keri. Sorry, I know you're in. I see you in chat talking to people. So.
Oh yeah, I just reading.
I don't know what's going on in chat. Right?
Nah, it's. Well, it doesn't make any sense. Maria asked if they want to abolish gender, then how can they be trans? They'll destroy trans if there is no gender.
That's what they want to do, though, Maria.
Yeah.
They want to make it so that trans isn't a thing, and they want to get paid for the work. That's kind of the point of this article. And I know it's just one person writing this, but this is, I don't know. I think this is a really good description of exactly where this movement is coming from. So, Keri, when I said I was like, what can they do? What power do they have? What does a trans strike look like? There aren't that many trans people. Well, they get into that. This person gets into that. Let's see what they could do and what they're threatening to do.
They're barring a lot of things too. I mean, this whole thing in general is they're barring, and I think he mentions it at the end in his sources. He's barring from the feminist idea that like the second wave feminists and talked about how women do all this unpaid labor at home, like woman's work is unpaid. So he's barring from all that. And then he's also barring from going on strike, which was this idea that he's barring from the gay and lesbian movement, that during the push for legalizing gay marriage, there was a lot of talk about like gay people should go on strike. you know, and actually one of the comics I worked with made a lot of jokes about it and stuff too. But, you know, the thing that there'll be no wedding planners and there'll be no, you know, this kind of idea of
Right.
like,
No hairdressers, blah, blah, blah.
right,
Yeah.
etc. So all of this is borrowing from, it's just building on things that have already been said in these different critical studies, different areas of critical studies, you know.
Yeah, and it's borrowing explicitly from Marxism, because he's about to talk about how class struggle works in Marxism and how to apply that to the trans struggle. So this is where some of the Marxist ideology crosses over and is used for intersectionalism. So trans strike, here we go. So he recognizes that there's not enough trans people to do kind of the archetypical labor organizing, labor unions, right? Trans people thus require full participation in one big union. So he wants a union. And the process of scaling to the general strike, there's much we can do. So now he's saying, okay, what tools can we use if we have a big union? You ready for this? We sabotage our workplaces, writing lines of code into the back ends of social media monopolies through which gender fuck hackers may enter and pirate the compromising data of oil share millionaires. So I would like to pause on that. The social media companies, let's pick on Facebook, Twitter, and Google/YouTube specifically, they are completely bought into this ideology. They are completely bought into this ideology. They would hire people like this in a microsecond. They want this representation and ideology in their workforce. This person is being very clear. They are advocating for sabotaging the code by leaking your information, pulling your private information, stealing your data and your private information from your social media, probably to steal from you and also to dox you or whatever. This is intentional. That's a dangerous thing they can do. It is, Daniel says it's cyber terrorism. That's the way they want to go. Yes, it's cyber terrorism. That's what they're talking about. And they're serious about that.
And they're already doing stuff like this. I mean,
but they're being very blatant about this, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Next line. We steal from our bosses. They shoplift lipstick. Communize our industries. Forge a new kin against the furnace of the family, collectivizing the rearing of our beyond biological children into the next battalion of revolutionary struggle. May they destroy us and you. So this is indoctrination of children. That's why you see the radical left and the Democrats, who have sort of become beholden to them, pushing for more and more indoctrination in lower and lower grades, pushing for preschool, pushing for universal government provided preschool, and that's why they're pushing all this ideology in government schools. This is the Soviet style child indoctrination, takes a village crap that they are pushing. El Vaquero says, you say communize, I hear destroy. Those are the same things. You heard the right thing, El Vaquero. Okay, let's see what else they might do, Keri. Just, what else might they do? Oh, armed robbery. When we commit armed robbery to fund our surgeries, that is wages for transition. I don't know what it is when we shoot you when you try and arm us or steal from us, but whatever. That is wages for transition. When we take sick pay to lie at home in bed, crying and watching makeup tutorials, that is pathetic. Oh no, that's wages for transition also. When we mug the rich to pay for wheelchairs, that is wages for transition. We demand wages for the work of transition so that transitions can escalate until work itself is no more. Now, by the way, that is the spoiled child coming out at the very end. All this entire thing is just, I said it at the beginning, while it is enlightening to see the thought process here, this is nothing more than a giant temper tantrum from a spoiled child demanding to not do any work and to get everything. And that comes through in the very end, and that's how the article ends, and then there's the acknowledgments. So, and in the acknowledgments, the writer admits he was in fact paid for his writing.
Of course he was. None of this is resistance. None of this is revolutionary. It's crazy, but this undergirds the ideology that has now become mainstream in the left. So it just sounds less wackadoodle when you're not looking at something specifically like this. But this guy, like you said, could easily get a job at Facebook, or could easily get paid for this piece. And there's nothing revolutionary.
Was paid for this piece.
Was paid for this.
Yeah. This isn't just one person's craziness. This is the ideology. And I like this because it's, we talk about how is Marxism related to this? Well, you can see in this article how the Marxist lens and class struggle is applied to the intersectionality intersectional groups, in this case, trans and a little bit women, how that ideology is applied. And if you recognize Marxism and the Marxists and the Marxist revolutions, they did not shy away from using violence to achieve their means. So the murdering of capitalist pigs, i.e. anyone with a job or anyone that they felt was bourgeois or slightly higher than the most base worker on the pay scale, was completely justified. And that's the mentality that you see here. And you see them talking about violence, armed robbery, other forms of thuggery, it's cyber terrorism. So you see that. You see that tie to Marxism. You see the feminist roots of it. There's the quote there's the reference to Simone de Beauvoir. I think someone else. There's a bunch of feminist references in the appendix, or not the appendix. In the reference list, in the sources list, there's references to feminist writing. This is all, they use the feminist arguments about unpaid labor, quote labor, again, conflating the idea of work, two different types of work, and using those types interchangeably, and equivocating on the word work constantly. But they use that same model to push forward this strategy. Keri, if someone Elizabeth said, if someone has gender dysphoria, can they legally purchase a firearm? Yes, but not if they've tweeted about gender dysphoria being a bad thing. Then they cannot purchase a firearm. You need to understand how this is going to work, Elizabeth. Keri, you've got to go soon.
I've got to go to work, but thank you for reading through the craziness with us, guys.
You have any other thoughts on this? I mean, you shared this article with me.
I don't. It's just spoiled and silly. It's just
spoiled and silly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, I really like this. I mean, not like, but I think this is an important read. I would almost argue that people should read it, but I don't want Harry to get more reads on Medium. So I'm not sharing the link.
We read it for you. Yeah.
It is nuts, though. The people in chats are saying, yeah, it is nuts.
Yeah.
So that's just how it goes. You got nuts. What else is going on in chat here? Even Brave New World didn't deny biological gender or the majority being heterosexual. That's true, but Brave New World is just a starting point. That's not the end.
There's another book. I can't remember the name. It might have been, if somebody in the chat knows, it might have been Moraga. Is that her name? Sherry Moraga? There's another book. It was kind of a futuristic. It was written by a feminist, though. And in it was talking about, that it takes a village to raise a child kind of thing, except they weren't just talking about extended family. They meant literally, in this version of this feminist utopia future, they had kids were born from test tubes, like in Brave New World, but they were born to groups of adults who there were no sexual, they weren't raised as male or female. There was no, it was just this weird, their idea of what is utopia and what is preferred is kind of strange. Like you said, they're very anti-family. They do not like the idea of a family unit. But
Yeah, they are very anti-family. And I think when I see this, I mean, it's easy to dismiss it as like a word salad that makes no sense. But if you dissect each sentence, there actually is something being said in each sentence. It's not random words thrown together. It is There is an ideology behind this, and the sentences make sense in the context of that ideology. You just have to understand like what they're meaning by the words, because the words don't necessarily mean what they actually mean. But it's I think it's pretty revealing to see this go through. And I don't know. I hate to keep using the spoiled child analogy, but it's just pushing back at reality. They're just upset that reality isn't the way they want it to be, and they're demanding that everyone else pay for and change everything around them to make it the way they want. And this is the stupid view of Marxism, where like, Marxists have this view like, we don't like that people are poor, that life is hard, that humans die. Therefore, we're just going to construct some fantasy in which none of that happens and pretend that that's implementable in some way. When by violating people's rights and murdering people with glasses, or the intellectual class, like, that's just not how it works. So I know you've got to go, Keri. I feel like we're
But
keeping you.
thank you guys for joining today. And if you like the video, please hit subscribe or like and share it with someone. And today was Deprogrammed. People are getting confused. Deprogrammed is generally supposed to be about SJW ideology, and Daily Covfefe is just like a daily show, which we also will do live on Fridays. So Daily Covfefe's tomorrow.
Daily Covfefe will be live tomorrow on Friday, and I think we need to. One of the things. So I think I've said this before, but we should just really quickly remind people. Next week we're out. Next week we'll try and post some rerun content for you guys. Keri and I next week will try and figure out. We may reconfigure some of the Daily Covfefe MG program stuff, just because there is some confusion about what's going on, and we do like this show, and then the next day we do another live show, but that one's Covfefe and this one is Deprogrammed, and we don't always even do a Covfefe on Thursdays because sometimes we get busy because it's 2 shows in one day. So but we will see you for Covfefe tomorrow, but I'm not sure what time. Keri, do you know what time, or we'll know later? You'll know later. Okay, we'll figure out what time. We'll let you know, and we'll do we can talk about everything in the kitchen sink tomorrow, because it will not be focused on just social justice. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to go like, share, subscribe, and go to unsafespace.com/shop and buy hats that say "Make Democrats liberal again." Every time you do that, Keri gets her wings. I don't know. Something good happens. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys. Take care.